Well, what does all this mean for portfolios? What I'd like to sort of quickly go over is what are the prospects for financial markets when confidence in quantitative easing and central bankers is lost? Because my belief is that it's only a question of time before that does happen, when confidence is going to be lost. So where are the landmines and where are the opportunities when the financial markets normalize of their own accord? So the first thing is that I believe central bankers are being queried to appear safer than it really is. Central bankers have suppressed volatility, therefore expect enormous volatility. Making positive returns will be actually about minimizing credit risk and investing in sound business models and sound balance sheets. And the last one, which is that asset classes will behave idiosyncratically and not as they've done historically since post-World War II. What sort of thing saying, well, high risk, equities is high risk, but there's high return, bonds is lower risk, and there's slightly lower return, and then obviously cash is even lower risk, and there's even lower return. And this is what people in the financial industry term the security market line. And I think a lot of investors default action is when they are confused about the equity market or fearful about the equity market or confused about the debt market or whatever the case may be, their default action is to put it in a savings deposit, in a savings deposit. And my belief is that that actually in the kind of environment we're going to come through, that's actually the wrong response. And I say that's the wrong response because the reality is that when you actually put a deposit with a bank, that deposit is really a credit to that banking system. And that particular bank, or to the bank or the banking system, that particular bank in turn has actually lent money. More importantly, it has only kept a certain fraction of that, of that money with the government, with the Reserve Bank as a required reserve or whatever it is. And in turn, obviously, the government has, in turn, the Reserve Bank, has bonds, government bonds on its balance sheet. But that's a fraction of what is actually really being put there. And as we'll show you, the health of a lot of the banks are actually highly questionable. Now, just to give you an example, if you were in Greece, for example, the Greek banks just shut down, and they didn't allow you to withdraw more than 150 euros per day. In Cyprus, you actually ended up anything over 100,000 euros in deposits was actually wiped out completely. So what we believe is that that there is going to be a massive credit storm, and you actually need to take a very balanced asset allocation view. You can't actually think that, okay, I'll put all my money in the bank and that'll be safe, because we also don't know how the central bankers are going to respond. As this crisis unfolds or as this tsunami unfolds, we don't know how they're going to respond. What is actually, what has been interesting in my journey as an investor, and again, as I said, as Michelle pointed out, that until 2011, I actually was just managing my own family's money. And what has been interesting in my journey is that, whereas I saw most of these things happening well before time, what I didn't see happening, quite to that extent was, the amount of crazy things the central bankers will do. So, if 3% interest rates was too low, 1% was too low, 0 was not low enough, and then negative is not low enough, and now I don't know again whether you're following it, but they're thinking of actually banning any dollar denominations greater than 100 billion. I mean, thinking in the sense that these are trial balloons in the media. So that the way to know that what the central bankers are thinking is to sort of see all these trial balloons being floated in the media. So the Europeans are already talking about banning 100 euro notes. And again, these trial balloons are being floated in the media and through Wall Street banks that they should be thinking of banning, $100 bills. So the point is that, in my opinion, as the central bankers start realizing that they are losing this war, and they're actually losing it literally battle by battle by battle, don't be surprised if they come up with even more and more bizarre schemes to try and keep this thing together, because the reality is that they can't keep it together. But the unfortunate bit is that they're going to try and do everything, no matter how crazy it might sound to people who are in business or savers, who are simply trying to save, keep a real return. So my belief is that you actually need to be broadly diversified. You need to be balanced. And the most important message really we have is that you should be at the highest quality end of each of these asset classes. So no matter what happens, what kind of storm happens, how the central bankers react, by remaining at the highest quality end of each of those asset classes, we believe that you can actually not just ride out the storm, but thrive in that storm. And so, as far as cash is concerned, we think the highest quality cash asset is gold. And the reason it is gold is because gold is like the only monetary asset that is actually no one's liability. So, it's been the monetary asset of involuntary exchange for more than 3,000 years. And when a producer extracts gold, he actually spends certain resources to extract that gold. And so there is actually no liability. When you think of the money you have in the bank, it's actually the bank's liability. As an asset, the bank has government bonds, but the government bonds is the government's liability. So every single part, every single financial asset in the whole chain is some entity's liability. But gold is the only monetary asset that really is no one's liability. And then bonds, you should actually buy bonds of net creditors, either sovereigns or corporates. Unfortunately, in India, net cash corporates don't issue debt. But I think the closest thing of that is what we call what we feel are PSU bonds of entities that actually provide a real service or a real product. So, for example, you've got railways. I think 25 million people must be moving on the railways every day. It's absolutely a critical service that has to be provided. Power Grid, again, is a similar entity. They provide 96% of the transmission of power in India. It's an absolute critical service. So we believe that if you restrict your debt portfolio to those kind of securities, again, we think you will ride out any sort of environment. And then finally on equity, we think high quality equity. So when we say high quality, we mean really sound business models and sound balance sheets. And then finally, I know that people in India, especially Pune, I think, love real estate. So in real estate, we think the most important thing is location, location, location. Again, I can't stress that enough. You really don't want to be caught out in very peripheral locations in the kind of storm that we see happen. And again, if there's one message that I really have for investors, is that you need to be diversified across all asset classes, and you need to be at the highest quality end of each of that asset class to ensure that the portfolio actually preserves capital, certainly on a relative basis. I just want to now touch on India because obviously, the global picture is gloomy, the global picture is bleak, but the interesting thing is that, I started saying, this presentation was first made in April 2014 before a conference of a whole bunch of asset managers and providers to funds and fund administrators. And I've not actually changed much of it other than, in fact, on the global side, I've become even bleaker, but what has changed is interestingly the Indian picture, and so I'm actually a lot more optimistic about India, and my message in India, which has actually just been formulated recently, is that, don't let the gloomy global picture prevent you from investing in India. And here's the thing in India. So the current account deficit has gone from negative 5% to a balance. The CPI inflation has fallen from double digits to around 6%. I personally think it's going to go even lower. Government deficit and subsidies for consumption has fallen. And I think as opposed to macroeconomic management in the rest of the world, which has been truly abysmal, the government and the Reserve Bank in India have actually done an outstanding job in terms of macroeconomic management. So they've cut consumption subsidies and made commitments to invest in infrastructure. And so the first one is roads. They claim that they're building 21 kilometers of roads per day, 50,000 kilometers in the next 6 years. The next is rail, then power, and then obviously defense. And I think other than the last one, I can actually say that every single other infrastructure investment they make is actually of a net societal benefit. There's no question in my mind that any money spent on road, rail, or power in India is of a tremendous societal benefit. It will produce a tremendous societal return. The second part of their plan is obviously being to attract foreign direct investment. And again, it might have been slow off the ground, but there's no question in my mind that it is coming. There has been a lot of interest generated for foreign direct investment. I think it's only going to be, a question of time before you start seeing that, on the ground. And then finally, they've got this cleanup of the public sector banks, and with the deadline of March 2017. So we know now that actually this is not a terminal problem that just lingers on, but they've set a deadline. So if they actually stick to that deadline, for the first time, I think in history that I can remember, public sector banks in India would have squeaky clean balance sheets, fully provided for, recapitalized, and so they're actually in a position to start lending again. So my guess is that all of this is bound to come together in the next 2 to 3 years, and markets are forward-looking, forward-looking sort of entities, and so it wouldn't surprise me if the market starts picking up on this, sometime within the next 9 to 18 months. I'd be surprised if it isn't actually 9 months. But even giving it a little bit of a lag, given how gloomy and pessimistic people are, we think that it won't be, before 18 months of the market's really big. The thing that I think, people need to worry about is that, there has been what we call a considerable creep of, lower rated papers in fixed income. So it never ceases to amaze me how a lot of investors who are very, very, very wary of the equity markets, don't actually look at what's in their fixed income portfolios, And actually, we think a lot of danger is in their fixed income portfolios. And we've been seeing, for example, that there have been very well-known income funds or very well-known, short-term funds which have actually increased their single-A investments from something like under 2%. All the way up to over 14%, and reduce their AAA. And my opinion is that a lot of AAA paper in India is actually no better than